Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's AEW Dynamite review show here on the unofficial WWE podcast. Today is Thursday, July 22nd, 2021. My name is Mimi Burris, and we are talking Fyter Fest Night 2. A whole lot to get into. Not a lot of awesome wrestling, but definitely an entertaining show, to say the least, with a bunch of newsworthy things coming out of it afterwards. And even before the show got going, we had a whole lot going on with Daniel Bryan's possible signing to AEW, with CM Punk in talks with signing to AEW. There's just a lot going on, a lot of buzz about this company, and I am so excited to get into all of it with you guys right after this.
Championship means that much. I can't believe what we're seeing here. DMD.
So yeah, guys, like I said at the beginning or the top of the show, this show, maybe pro wrestling wise, wasn't anything to write home about at all, but the feeling and the aura watching it, I don't know if it was the Daniel Bryan, CM Punk stuff around it. I don't know if it was Rey Fenix returning. That's probably a big part of it, and we're going to talk about that too, and you guys are probably going to want to lower your volume when we get to that point, because I was hyped up about that one. So we're going to get into all that. I don't know if it was that, what it was, what the feeling was, but really my guess is it was the fans were engaged in every aspect of this show. Even the matches that didn't necessarily hit somehow because of the crowd. So I'm just so grateful crowds are back. I know a bunch of you are as well. How could we not be? It makes this whole thing that we watch in pro wrestling so much better. It is truly the heart and soul of pro wrestling is the fans. And yeah, that is what probably kept me engaged for these 2 hours, because they were hyped up in Dallas, Texas. So without further ado, let's just get to the top of the show, because starting the show off this week was every fan in Dallas, Texas singing in unison to Judas as Chris Jericho made his way down to the ring and had the opening match with Shawn Spears. And obviously, as you guys probably all know, this was the first of the 5 labors of Jericho, and Shawn Spears was allowed to use a chair in this match, but Chris Jericho was not. And I thought they did a really good job playing with that stipulation, because it can get a little bit funky, but it does make sense. And MJF being on commentary for this match made this whole thing so much better. It's just the what's the word I'm looking for? Just the MJF's presence as a whole, and especially MJF on a mic, adds so much to the show in general, but especially to any segment that he's on. And so I really think it elevated this match as a whole to have him on commentary. And yeah, I mean, he played a perfect heel. So like I said, the story of this match was obviously that Shawn Spears was able to use the chair and Jericho wasn't. And towards the finish of the match, they had set up a chair in the corner. You know how they do, they pin it up against the ropes, and Chris Jericho shoved Shawn Spears into that chair that Shawn Spears had originally set up, and then hit him with the Judas effect and got the 1-2-3 pinfall. And we'll get into the after the match afterwards, obviously. But first and foremost, I do want to talk about the actual match itself, which really, like I said at the start of the show, was another match that just wasn't something to write home about. So let's start with the positives of this match, however, because as you all know, I am very, very positive. Chris Jericho is a master conductor of crowds. He does such a good job of making it so the crowd stays invested in a match, in a promo, in whatever. Chris Jericho is the master at reinventing himself. We all know this. So yes, Chris Jericho managed to keep this crowd in the match like no other in true Chris Jericho style, because like I said, I feel like I'm going to repeat myself 50 times saying this, but the stuff in the ring was really nothing exciting. Shawn Spears played his part perfectly well too, and Chris Jericho does such a good job of having those spots set up, like the chair in the corner, so it looks very organic and doesn't look, i.e. Women's Money in the Bank match this past Sunday. If you know, you know. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this. Like I said, I was invested because the crowd was invested, and sometimes it's really that simple with the storyline going into it, with the Chris Jericho being in the ring and being able to keep the crowd so invested. With everything, MJF on commentary, all the like, makes for a this makes me think about like Rock Hogan. And again, I was probably like a baby when that match happened, but Rock Hogan, right? From what I've seen and from what I've heard and the match itself, right? Really wasn't, there were no flippy dippy things, nothing super exciting. It was just the fact that it was The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. It was the story going in the match, and it was the crowd that was so invested into the match that makes it one of the greatest matches of all time. The actual in-ring action, can anybody tell me anything that actually happened in that match? You don't really, nothing memorable, and that was the same thing tonight. So, all in all, positive for the first match. Again, although the wrestling necessarily wasn't all elite, you can't argue with a response like that. So, moving on, after the match, obviously, we had post-match MJF coming to the stage with a microphone from commentary, and he says, I forgot to mention, obviously, Sammy Guevara came out during the match to stop Tully Blanchard from distracting the referee. So we had a little helpful interference from Sammy Guevara. Crowd pop for him once again, but MJF comes out and says that if anybody else interferes in any of the other labors of Jericho, that he will be immediately disqualified, and that'll be it. And he says next week's labor is a no-rules match against one of the most sadistic criminals ever to step in a ring, a man who once stabbed his opponent in the jugular, a man who once robbed a bank with no mask on. And then the music hits, and Nick Gage comes out, and the crowd pops huge. Well-deserved, obviously, for a man who's put his body on the line like Nick Gage has, literally dying for 7 minutes from a match. I went and watched the Dark Side of the Ring they have on Nick Gage, which is, again, I think I say it on this show every single week. Those Dark Side of the Rings are done so well. And if you're interested in any of this stuff and you don't know a lot about it, go check it out, because they really are super, super interesting. I didn't know anything about Bruiser Brody and Abdullah, and they obviously were referenced in the main event tonight, and I didn't know anything about them until I watched that Dark Side of the Ring, and then I got super invested and started doing research on Bruiser Brody, because that was like crazy, crazy story. So, yes, go watch that Dark Side of the Ring if you have not already. You can probably find it illegally on Daily Motion or wherever you watch your illegal videos, but I didn't send you there because I don't know if I can get in trouble for that. So, anyways, moving on. Next week, obviously, is going to be Nick Gage versus Chris Jericho, no rules match, labor number 2. We all clearly know that Chris Jericho is probably going to make it through these 5 labors. I don't know why that's so hard to say. 5 labors. Because if he didn't, that would be really weird. However, we can suspend our disbelief. It's kind of like when you have a 2 out of 3 falls match. You kind of know that it's going to be one or the other. Or when you have a 2 out of 3 match. I don't know what it's called. When you have 3 stages of hell. That's the word. That's the stipulation I'm looking for. You kind of know that one guy's going to win 2, or one guy's going to win 1, the other guy's going to win the other, and then they're going to have the third match. Otherwise, it's kind of weird to advertise the third match. So, we all have a feeling that Chris Jericho is going to win these 5 stages or 5 labors of Jericho. However, I mean, in a no rules match versus Nick Gage, if you ever wanted to make it so you could not believe that was going to happen, and then obviously keep the drama at a high level, that is what you do. You pull frickin' Nick Gage out of your pocket, Tony Khan. I mean, so like I said, I watched that Dark Side of the Ring, and I did know a little bit about Nick Gage, obviously, beforehand. He is got the cult following. He is just a folk legend in pro wrestling and obviously in death matches, which is ironic with the main event tonight, but I'm sure he would have been proud. However, some of the stuff Nick Gage has done has been absolutely brutal, and for those of you who are not familiar at all, I really recommend you hide your children and then you get yourself familiar with Nick Gage's wrestling, if you want to call it that, because this stuff is absolutely bonkers in comparison to anything we see in mainstream North American wrestling. So, I'm excited for this match next week, but man, am I concerned for Chris Jericho, the 50-year-old man's health. Really, I think he's 50. I'm not even going to look that up. I'm just going to go with it. I think he's 50 years old. Yeah, I'm concerned for his health because of Nick Gage's history. And, he's got a checkered past, obviously, with trust of the other competitor in the ring, I think. And, it's like I said, some of the stuff he does is absolutely bonkers. And, yeah, Chris Jericho's not a spring chicken anymore. And he probably doesn't recover as quickly as he used to 20 years ago. So, who knows how this whole thing is going to go. I'm hoping for the best, obviously, and I am excited nonetheless. And there's obviously that whole drama behind the whole thing. But with all that being said, I have seen some real bad faith takes online talking about, oh, Nick Gage, Tony Khan hired a criminal. Yeah, okay, hired a criminal. I'm sorry. What was on SmackDown? Because I could have sworn there was one of these twins that got a DUI and then was on the show the next week and then won a championship at the next pay-per-view, which they mean nothing, but still. You want to talk about hiring criminals or whatever. Guess what, guys? Nick Gage is an addict and a self-admitted addict and an addiction to drugs. Guess what an addiction to drugs does? It makes you do stupid things, right? So you want to label him a criminal. Nobody's freaking perfect. We all have done stupid things. Clearly, the man was not in his right mind if he didn't have a freaking mask on when he robbed a bank. All right? So shut up with your, Tony Khan hired a criminal. Like, oh my God, guys. Oh my God. How non-progressive are we? Can we not just get past that here? Crazy. And I am not making an excuse or anything for any of the things that Nick Gage has done. He's got to live with that. That's his life. But don't get on your motherfucking high horse and talk about, oh, Nick Gage is a criminal and Tony Khan hired him. Tony Khan, you're such an idiot. Whatever. Like, screw that, guys. Screw that. This is an exciting, dramatic match, to say the least. Let alone just, we talked about, obviously, the dangers of a Nick Gage anything match. But we're also talking about, yeah, if I was MJF, I'd hire the most dangerous man in pro wrestling and put him in a match against Chris Jericho if I didn't want to be in a ring with him. So story beat-wise, this makes perfect sense. And all of you little 14-year-olds who somehow have, like, the moral compass of pro wrestling now, or somehow you joined my good friend Logan Meyer and made yourselves the moral compass of professional wrestling, and it is no longer okay that Nick Gage wrestles on professional wrestling live television broadcasting national whatever it's called because he robbed a bank and he's a bad man. Oh, please, you guys. Hulk Hogan hosted WrestleMania this year. We are so far gone from that. Nick Gage is a guy who made mistakes in his life. And guess what? He's not a hateful human being from what I see. He's just a crazy motherfucker, for lack of a better term. I can't come up with any. It's so funny. I said crazy motherfucker and my dog's ears perked up. He even knows I shouldn't be swearing on this podcast. Okay. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to give the trolls and the haters, I hate calling them that. I'm not going to give the little dweebs on their Twitter phones, on the tweeter, who somehow have decided that pro wrestling is like this little, rainbows and unicorns world, and you can't have people like Nick Gage, who, again, served their time in prison for what they did, right? That's the reason we have prison, apparently, but I'm not going down into all these politics. We can't have him on TV. No more time to those people because you guys, frankly, just don't watch pro wrestling and go turn on that, like, Baby Shark do thing, because that sounds like what you should probably be watching. All right, moving on, guys. I'm hyped for that match nonetheless, and let's talk about what happened next. We come back from commercial break after we get a hype reel for Rampage, which speaking of which, no pun intended, am hyped for. I'm so excited for Dynamite to have more time, and I'm really excited to see how they handle Rampage, if it'll really be like a true second flagship show, or if it's just going to be another, dark elevation thing. And then we had Miro cutting a promo, just doing Miro things, nothing new to add here. And then we had our second match of the night, which was none other than Doc Gallows versus Frankie Kazarian, the Elite Hunter. And man, guys, was I disappointed in this. I don't know why I had any higher hopes for it than I probably should have, but I did. And I was excessively disappointed in it throughout the entire match. Yeah, this was really dull, and the booking to me, I can't seem to comprehend. So I don't know if I'm missing something or if anybody else can explain this whole thing to me, but guys, why did we, no pun intended, killed the Elite Hunter in his first match against the Elite? I mean, there were tag team matches and whatever else, but his first singles match against a member of the Super Elite, Frankie Kazarian, the Elite Hunter, lost. So, as per usual, I try to give AEW the benefit of the doubt here. I try to give their booking the benefit of the doubt. I try to give Tony Khan the benefit of the doubt. Because, Miro sucked for a really long time, and now look at him now. Andrade is still floundering, so that's not really a good example. But there have been situations, obviously, where I have questioned it. With the Hangman Page losing to Brian Cage the first time before Double or Nothing, obviously, I was confused about that. And what do you know? It was a perfect story beat in this whole Kenny Omega Hangman Page storyline. So, guys, I don't know what I'm missing here. Or maybe I'm not missing anything, and maybe AEW just made a bad decision. This made no sense to me. So clearly, as you can tell by my befuddlement going on right now, Doc Gallows got the pinfall victory over Frankie Kazarian, and then the rest of the Elite, or excuse me, just Carl Anderson came into the ring. They had a beatdown. They hit the Magic Killer. Then Kenny Omega and Don Callis came down, and we had the whole next segment that we'll get into. But before that, yeah, I mean, if anybody else has any ideas as to why they would have booked this, because the good news is with this company is I know there's usually a reason behind these things, and so they're not always just bad decisions. You know, they're not always just like pinning your undefeated NXT champion in under 2 minutes to a jobber Jeff Hardy on Raw. They're not those decisions. There's usually thought behind it, and there's something I'm missing here. Hopefully, at the very least, I'm hoping that's what's going on here. So if anybody else has any idea what that is, please tweet me on the tweeter. Send me an email. You guys know the deal. Like I love to hear your guys' theories because I got nothing here. I got nothing. I wish I had Ashley Mann on the show. Maybe she would have an idea, and maybe we get her back sooner rather than later with all of the amazing shows coming up. Fight for the Fallen tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Next week. I wish it was tomorrow. So maybe she'll have an idea and we can talk about it more then. And maybe more will be revealed next week, obviously, on Dynamite. So we'll see. But for right now, guys, this booking decision made no sense. And if you're going to do the beatdown after the match, why does why does Doc Gallows even have to win the match? Just made no sense to me. However, nonetheless, we move on with our lives and we move on to, like I started to, not review. What's the word I'm looking for? Recap. As I started to recap, we had the post-match beatdown with the Good Brothers hitting, like I said, the Magic Killer on Kazarian. And then Kenny Omega and Don Callis came out. Callis says that it's time to take a good look at your AEW World Champion to the crowd and says that this is what you get when you mess with the Elite, obviously to Frankie Kazarian. Omega says that Kazarian has been a thorn in their side for months, but the tables have turned on the Elite Hunter, and he has now become, what is it? The Hunter has become the hunt. No. And then Callis has to whisper in his ear, the Hunter has become the hunted. And they are about to beat him down even more, and then we get Hangman Page's music hitting, and he comes out, of course, with a glass of beer or whatever he's drinking, and comes down to make the save. Don Callis says that Hangman Page, obviously, there's one of you, there's like 4 of us. Either you are really dumb or you're drunk. And Page says nothing and just gives Callis his drink and starts to punch the Good Brothers. He starts to get in the numbers game, obviously catches up with him, and then we have the Dark Order running out to make the save. Obviously, the members of the Dark Order that are competing in next week's 10-man elimination tag team match that I am so excited for, you guys. And we get an amazing looking buckshot lariat to Carl Anderson. Page and the Dark Order stand tall, and we go backstage to an interview with Brian Cage, which we'll get to after this, and really wasn't notable. But anyways, yeah, guys, this after the match was kind of, I don't know, it was inessential, but it was also, that's not the word I'm looking for. It was functional. It wasn't as good as last week's, obviously, which was one of the greatest peaks of a long-term storyline thing that I've seen in a really long time. And this week was not nearly as good, but the buckshot lariat looked really good. And this was kind of just, again, essential and functional to build to next week's match, obviously, for if anyone had missed last week's great confrontation between the Dark Order and the Elite. And yeah, I have nothing more really to say about that besides Kenny Omega is funny with that the hunted line. I think that was hilarious. And I'm just hyped and excited for this match, guys. I'm really, really so enamored with this booking, and I can't wait to watch it, obviously, next week at Fight for the Fallen. I can't wait till there's just regular Dynamite again. We've got Homecoming. Like, it's going to have a name for every single one, man. The branding. Anyways, like I said, we went to Brian Cage backstage, and he's asked if Team Taz are still here, or excuse me, they show something of Team Taz's celebration. They're celebrating in the little, whatever, alleyway, not alleyway, you know what I'm talking about, that thing that you walk through before you go into the crowd. And obviously pre-taped from earlier in that night. And they're celebrating the FTW championship win from Ricky Starks. And Brian Cage asks that if first he asks if Team Taz are still here, and then he just says he loves the celebration, and we all know what's going to happen next week on the celebration of the new FTW champion. We will probably see some interference, as most celebrations have. I can't remember the last celebration I saw that didn't get interfered. What's the? You guys know what I'm trying to say. Anyways, after that we had Darby Allin versus Wheeler Yuta. And obviously, Darby Allin came out with Sting, and Wheeler Yuta came out with Orange Cassidy. And this was just as inessential and functional as the rest of the show, basically. But I say all that. However, the best part of the entire show was Orange Cassidy and Sting are outside the ring. They make eye contact. Sting gives him the kick. The crowd goes, "Oh!" Orange Cassidy gives him the kick. Oh, it's like the greatest moment. And then Sting does like the lazy gorilla or chest pound. It was so wonderful. Like, what a great spot. And again, you guys know I rib on Sting a lot on this show, but this was really just nice to see. I don't need to make it any deeper than it was. It was just a great spot, period. And it's probably the only thing that was memorable about this entire match. Not that Darby Allin isn't extremely talented, neither is Wheeler Yuta. And it was nice that they put him against Darby Allin this week, obviously getting the eyes that are on Darby Allin on Wheeler Yuta as well. They clearly have a lot of faith behind this young guy. So, not that there was anything wrong with this match, but... And I don't mean to make it any deeper than it was on the outside of the ring, but it was nice just to see Sting, someone who's embracing the new style of professional wrestling, and I'll leave it at that. So, Darby Allin obviously won this match by pinfall after hitting the coffin drop. Post-match, we have the Blade appearing to attack Orange Cassidy with the brass knucks, and we get further developments into that just thrilling storyline later on in the show. But after that, we get a video package for tonight's main event. Basically the stuff we saw on, if you guys watch the Road 2s. If you don't watch the Road 2s, if you have no idea what I'm talking about when I say the Road 2s, they're on YouTube. Just go to AEW Dynamite's YouTube page. They're about like 10 minutes long normally, and they do them for mostly almost every Dynamite. Not every Dynamite, but most Dynamites. Maybe it is every Dynamite. Really worth taking a couple minutes out of your day and checking them out. They really do hype you up for this week's Dynamite. It always makes me even more excited for whatever I'm about to watch. So, if you didn't know about the Road 2s, they're on YouTube and they're great, but you probably did, so I just probably wasted a lot of your time. Nevertheless, we got a video package hyping up, and most of it was just the same that we saw on the Road 2. And then we get a recap of Nyla Rose and Britt Baker. Nyla Rose powerbombing Britt Baker through the tables a couple weeks ago. And then we get the Women's Championship match, Dr. Britt Baker versus Nyla Rose. And man, when Britt Baker comes out, does she not get the pop? Like, I think she could challenge Jon Moxley's pop, man. Like, when she enters, she is a star. And they better start treating her like one and booking her like one, because lately it has not been as so. However, this match was kind of similar to the match against Hikaru Shida, where it wasn't really great in the beginning, but once they did that great spot with the Eddie Guerrero, obviously her tossing Nyla Rose the title and then falling on the ground, and then Vicky Guerrero distracting the referee, and then Nyla Rose pulling the switcheroo on her, but not really. After that part, the match kind of got pretty good, but a lot of this stuff was sloppy in the beginning, and I don't know. I don't know if you need to give Britt Baker somebody like a Serena Deeb, or... I mean, she was in the ring with Hikaru Shida, and Hikaru Shida is definitely a ring general for sure, but I don't necessarily... I wouldn't put her on the same pedestal as a Serena Deeb. I just think Britt Baker needs a really good match. Like a really good match, because this was not it. And it was good towards the end, just like I said, just like the Hikaru Shida match at Double or Nothing, but at the end of the day, reversing the Beast Bomb, roll through, she gets the lockjaw and gets the submission victory to retain the AEW Women's Championship. And yeah, guys, this was about as good as it was going to be with the build that it had. And I've talked at length about all of this, so I won't go into it anymore. I'm just excited to see what's next for Britt Baker, and I hope it's Serena Deeb, because Serena Deeb is one of the best wrestlers in the world right now, and I'm itching to see that match. So we then cut back to I think it was a press conference that was later or earlier on in the day is what they said, but it was between FTR and Proud and Powerful. And it was the same stuff we've heard for the past couple weeks, nothing new, and it was really weird, and it didn't feel like a press conference, and the editing was weird, and I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm excited for the match, nonetheless. I thought they were going to wait till Grand Slam for this, but obviously that's way down the line, so I could see why they're not going to do that, and maybe that's just me being selfish because I'm going to be at Grand Slam, and I want to see that match live, because this is going to be a great and incredible tag team match. I think this is a match that's almost gotten hindered by too much build, if that makes sense, because they're just doing the same crap every week in a, it's like same crap, different dressing, So then we had one of the worst segments of the entire show, but also my favorite segment of the entire show, and you all know why it was my favorite segment of the entire show. Andrade comes out. He's having an interview with Tony Schiavone. He says he's introducing his new assistant. And then Chavo Guerrero comes out. And with a decent pop. Just want to throw that out there. Like, Chavo Guerrero got a pop, but for what? Again, every wrestler that puts their bodies on the line, like, I'm all for it, obviously. And it is, I respect the ability it takes to be a wrestler and all that. And I don't mean to disrespect Chavo Guerrero, but Chavo Guerrero is no... I don't know. The way he hyped it up, I still thought Zelina Vega was going to come out. I know she was on Money in the Bank and she signed with WWE again. But, guys, I was just... Why are we giving Andrade Chavo Guerrero, at least with that much of a hype? It just felt unnecessary. Or maybe that's not the right word for it. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I guess just like... I don't know. Like Chavo, guys. Chavo. Sporting a great mustache. But still, it's still Chavo. I think Chavo could be a good man. He didn't even sound confident on the microphone, though. I want to say, like, I think he could be a good manager, but, like, at the same time, like I said, he didn't even sound comfortable on the microphone. So who knows what this was. But anyways, nonetheless, moving on with the segment, obviously. Death Triangle comes out, guys, and Pac, Penta, and guess who's back, guys? None other than Rey Fenix. I popped out of my freaking futon and jumped into the television with excitement. I was so hyped. I'm so looking forward to him coming back. The show has missed him, or I have missed him. But I know I am not alone in that, guys, because nobody does that tightrope walk. Nobody does a suicide dive better than Mr. Rey Fenix. He's back. I didn't know when he was coming back. I did not know when he was coming back from injury. Obviously, it was very hush-hush for some reason. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but I was hyped for this. So who cares about Chavo Guerrero or this terrible character that Andrade has been presented as? Who cares about all that? Freaking hyped for Rey Fenix's return, guys, and I am so excited to see these matches coming up. I know we haven't seen a lot from Andrade in AEW yet, but I still have faith. So yeah, the Lucha Brothers came out. Pac is on the microphone. He says he doesn't know who Andrade thinks he is, but last week they heard their name in his mouth. And for the record, let it be known that Death Triangle hides from no one. Nada. And then Andrade says he thanks them for coming out and says the Lucha Bros are good, but he's great. He says he's an elite superstar. And then Chavo takes the microphone. He says Pac only speaks one language, so he's going to explain it to him. And then the crowd goes, oh, and I'm like, really? Was that a diss? And then he says they're all talented, everybody knows that, but their waists aren't shiny enough, and they want to change that, and they can if they just listen to Andrade. And then Andrade has one question for the Lucha Brothers: why work for Pac? And then Pac's like, what? I didn't know that was a thing either. But Pac's like, they don't work for him. Death Triangle is a family, a brotherhood, a team. And then Rey Fenix says the same thing in Spanish before adding that they are the real face of the Latinos, a little zinger for Andrade there. Penta says some stuff in Spanish as well, and then Alex Abrahantes gets on the mic, and I love that this is getting over. He goes, Penta says, why would they join a group with Andrade when he's not even on their level? And then Andrade asks them to be calm, tranquilo, and as they start to enter the ring, look like they're going to have a pull-up brawl. But the referees swarm and keep the brawl from even happening. So really, realistically, guys, the segment was crap. I love that they have the translator, and I love that they're allowing, like, Penta is a great promo. Although his English isn't great, that doesn't mean he's not a great promo. I'm sure if you guys, I speak some Spanish, but for you fluent Spanish speakers out there, I'm sure he's a great promo to you. And I love Alex Abrahantes' contribution to Death Triangle. I think it works. this just didn't work with the Chavo thing, and Andrade felt awkward, and if he's going to do the English thing, he's got to do it a little bit better. I don't know. Anyways, this segment kind of sucked. It went on too long. There was a direction, I guess. You know, I assume maybe we're going to see Andrade and the Lucha Bros as a team eventually. Maybe they turn on Pac. I don't know. I don't know exactly what's going to go on, but nevertheless, I was just happy to see Death Triangle on TV. And hopefully they do something better with him next week, because this has some juice in it, guys. It's just not being executed very well or thought out very well. So, up next, we had Christian backstage with both Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. Basically cut a promo saying that this feud isn't over and they're going to fight next week. So, you guys, I thought it was the end of it too, Christian. I thought that match last week was the end of this too, but it's continuing. However, the only bright spot of this, coming out of all of this, obviously, is that we seem to be getting some kind of Jungle Boy versus Christian Cage feud majiggy thing going on, and I'm all about that, because that's going to be a great match for Jungle Boy to be elevated, for Christian Cage to elevate Jungle Boy, and they have a whole story, obviously, with the Double or Nothing Casino Battle Royale thing that really doesn't provide anything else, so that'll be good. And yeah, and then we had another match, obviously, with Orange Cassidy versus The Blade. And The Blade thinks he has won this match. However, no. Orange Cassidy slides in the ring behind him and, beats him up from behind when the bell rings. And overall, honestly, guys, this was probably one of my favorite matches of the night, if not the match of the night for me. No, not the match of the night. There was obviously the main event, which was crazy. But this was the regular match of the night for me. The match of the night that had rules for me. We had, the Bunny trying to get involved. Then we had Chris Statlander again. Call back to that. Chris Statlander took a suicide dive, obviously, with the Blade, putting her in front of him, and Orange Cassidy hitting that. And then essentially Orange Cassidy just pushes the Blade into Bunny for revenge on that. And a little more interference from them later on in the show as well, later on in the match as well. But nonetheless, the story of the match being that Orange Cassidy keeps trying to hit the beach break, can't get it because of his back, but eventually he does hit it, yet he only gets a 2 count. Bunny throws the brass knucks in the ring, Orange Cassidy ducks him, hits the orange punch, gets a 3 count, and then grabs the brass knuckles again post-match and hits an orange punch with the brass knucks and then puts them in his pocket. I hope he keeps those. I think that would be a great little beat to Orange Cassidy. And yeah, this was, like I said, guys, this was probably the most entertaining, fun, regular match of the night for me. The crowd was invested for most of it. Orange Cassidy is so ridiculously over. The Blade is not shabby in the ring either, and, it was what it was. It was nothing. I hope this feud is over and we move on to the next thing, because Orange Cassidy, again, subjectively isn't my favorite wrestler in AEW, guys, but he is so over. So I hope he goes on to bigger and brighter things than a match with the Blade in the 3rd hour of AEW Dynamite. Though, next we had Chris Jericho being interviewed backstage. He says MJF is going to he's facing the other way, by the way. I forgot to mention that. He's facing, he's got his back to the camera. He says MJF is going to bring in the most violent and demented man in pro wrestling to face him. Well, he's going to be the most demented and violent version of Chris Jericho. So next week, against Nick Gage, he'll be the Painmaker. And he obviously has the callback to his New Japan persona. Chris Jericho is a master at reinventing himself. This whole thing was a little bit weird and awkward, and it almost felt, Chris Jericho almost looked like he was wearing a Halloween costume, but I'm sure that this is just going to add another great dimension to this match next week that I'm already terrified, but also, super interested into how it's going to all go down. So, and then we get a package for all of the matches for next week. And we got a video package for Cody Rhodes versus Malachi Black. When that video package, Arn Anderson took that Black Mass. Again, I don't know what they're calling the move yet, but I hope they keep the name Black Mass because I love that. And then we had our main event, guys. Jon Moxley, the champion, versus Lance Archer for the IWGP United States World Heavyweight Championship in a Texas death match, which is essentially a last man standing match. And I didn't know that at first. I'm going to be honest with you guys. That one slipped my mind. However, this match was probably one of the most entertaining last man standing matches I've seen in a while. The only one that came to mind in recent memory was the match with Raquel Gonzalez versus Rhea Ripley in NXT, maybe towards the end of last year, if I'm correct. That one was a good one, but this one was obviously way crazier than anything they've ever done on NXT. Right out of the gates, Moxley jumps and pounces on him, throws him, hammering him with punches. They go down to the floor. He's got kendo sticks, he's hitting Archer with kendo sticks. But then, obviously, Lance quickly takes control over the barricade, throws a fan into Jon Moxley. I love that. Crazy Lance Archer stuff. They fight up the steps into the crowd, which I never really love, but whatever. I know it's coming back into the ring, obviously. Forearm to the heads, stops a suicide dive from Moxley, and then Archer starts throwing the steel steps around and pulls the pads up on the floor and tries to hit Moxley with a slam. However, Moxley slips out, hits a DDT on the concrete that I think commentary tried to pass off as a paradigm shift, but it was not a paradigm shift, and it didn't really look good. However, we get Lance Archer obviously bleeding from that. And then fucking Jon Moxley just pulls out a goddamn fucking fork and starts stabbing fucking Lance Archer with a fucking fork. And it was absolutely crazy. And like I said, a throwback to we had with the fan, obviously, with Bruiser Brody and Abdullah. But of course, he was not going to leave a mark on Lance Archer like that. And these guys just showed such a great trust in each other, you know, of being able to take these awesome bumps, obviously, which came later on. We had trash can shots, chair shots, Archer popping up after the paradigm shift for like a 3 count, and the crowd went wild. And then Moxley hits him with the fork again and again and again, puts some barbed wire boards on some tables that are set up at ringside, and then Lance Archer and him are both on the apron. Lance Archer blocks it, however, and he starts stabbing Jon Moxley with the fork, taste of his own medicine, choke slam through the tables, and Jon Moxley is obviously stuck in the barbed wire, cannot get out, cannot get up for the 10 count, and Lance Archer is your new IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion. And post-match, we had, I'm going to mess up how to pronounce his name, guys, because I already forgot it. Hakulio? Let's go with Hakulio, because that sounds like Hakulio. He's a Coolio. Hakulio. Hakulio? I forgot it, guys, and I hope I don't offend anybody. That's not what I mean to do. I'm terrible at pronouncing things, and I forgot. Comes up on the apron, and this man is huge, and he's ready to challenge for the title next week, obviously, against against Lance Archer. It's late here. He's ready to challenge against Lance Archer next week, and I'm excited for that match, too. Two giant, big dudes beating each other up in the ring. Who could ask for anything more? But yeah, despite the post-match, guys, which was fine, this match was absolutely absurd. Of course, there were a couple spots, like, again, I talked about in the beginning of the show. There were a couple things with this whole show in general. A lot of the wrestling wasn't particularly tight or great. However, like, I saw Jon Moxley clearly with the blade spot. You could tell that Lance Archer was cutting himself, too, on the floor. That DDT didn't even look good at all. However, the man put himself through barbed wire, so can I sit here and complain? And the crowd was crazy for the entire thing, and Lance Archer chucked a fan at Jon Moxley. So this match, despite, like, the little nuances, who cares? They were stabbing each other with a fork. This was a way to go off the air on Fyter Fest Night 2, and I was all about it, guys. Adrenaline pumping, and like I said, the crowd is hyped up for it. How can I say anything? I was so happy with what they did, putting the belt on Lance Archer, obviously. And this didn't hurt Jon Moxley at all. I mean, the man was stuck in barbed wire. How could he have gotten up? So I thought this whole thing was so well booked, so well laid out. These two guys, again, killed each other. How could I ask for anything more? And next week, guys, we are getting that next week, guys, we are getting that 10-man tag team match. We're getting Rey Fenix, hopefully, in some capacity. I don't care what it is. Give me some more Rey Fenix. We are getting Britt Baker in some capacity, I assume. Just championship celebration, maybe a promo backstage. Stop putting QT Marshall on television and give me more of the people that I actually want to see. I don't care about the Hardy Family Office versus Christian Cage and Jungle Boy. Who cares? But we've got that 10-man tag team match and a ton of other things to look forward to. This IWGP World Heavyweight Championship match between Lance Archer and the guy whose name I already butchered, so I'm not going to try it again. Next week looks absolutely absurd for Fight for the Fallen. I want to hear your guys' predictions. I want to hear all your dream spots in that 10-man tag team match. Tweet me, email me. It's mimi.realwwepodcast@gmail.com. It's Mimi Burris on Twitter. You know where to find me. Let me know what you guys think. And with all that being said, I thought this Dynamite was just dynamite. I did it, guys. I used it. I used that pun, and that's the only time I'm hopefully ever do that. But I thought this Dynamite was just Dynamite because of the crowd, not necessarily the exact like functional pro wrestling in the ring, but the feeling, the aura, the matches of the feeling around the matches, and like I said, the crowd and just the vibe of the whole damn thing. How can I complain? So, with all that being said, guys, I will talk to you next week and have a great week.